Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have a presentation with Christie, CEO of Banyan Gold. Before we get started, as always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. You can find those on the company's presentation on their website, and there will be a Q&A section, so feel free to input your Q&A in the box at the bottom. With that out of the way, hi Tara, nice to see you.
Great to see you again. Thanks for setting up another webinar for us.
Yeah, congrats. It seems like you've had a pretty successful program this summer so far and through the fall, and you put out an update this morning that kind of goes over everything that's going on. So looking forward to getting that update and digging in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. We've been really busy and with 3 drills turning and hiring people and getting set up for drilling into the winter. It's been really busy for us. We've been really fortunate. We're one of the I think we might be the only ones drilling left in the Yukon. I'm not totally sure, but we've been very focused on our own work. But it's let us really get, the A-team drillers, a great field team. Gives us a bit of an advantage going into 2022, I think. So.
Yeah, and I think you were one of the first in the area to start drilling in the spring, actually late winter. So you had a long season.
February 15th we started, and last year we drilled to December 15th, and again that's our target again for this year, is to drill to around December 15th and then take about a month and a half off. If it's a really warm winter, we'll shorten that up and get started again. When the days start getting longer again in February and March, it's a really good time to be out drilling where we are, because you do less environmental damage to be out on the snow than to have to build roads. So yeah, so maybe I'll just jump into showing the presentation and kind of what we have, but feel free to jump in the middle if you've got a question that comes up. I'm happy to take questions as we get them from viewers. So, here's the beautiful landscape on the front of our presentation. This is that Aurex Hill target, which I've talked a lot about. You can see the main highway and power line go right through the center of the image. Our camp here at kilometer 1, and that's where our core processing facility is. We now have 6 core shacks so that we can accommodate a lot of core and quite a well-established infrastructure, as well as our Thompson Creek camp, which is just outside of the photograph. This is the road to Victoria Gold. They're just 40 kilometers by this road, or 20 kilometers as the crow flies. And here's their substation. So great infrastructure, even 4 bars on the cell phone here. So a great place to be. And yeah, as Deborah said, I will be making forward-looking statements. We've got a very exciting project and we're advancing it very quickly. And we believe that Aurex has multi-million ounce potential, same age of mineralization as Victoria Gold. We're right beside Victoria Gold and Alexco, which is important for 2 reasons. It's that this is a highly mineralized area with 2 systems that affected and were immediately adjacent to us: the gold system that created Victoria Gold and the gold that we're seeing in Aurex, and then Alexco's high-grade silver, which was later. But there's also the potential for that on our property. But being beside 2 mines also shows you can permit a mine in the Yukon. It's a tier 1 jurisdiction with a sophisticated First Nation that works with mining companies and understands and has businesses that actually depend on mining companies. So that's a great thing to have. Lots of jurisdictions might be in countries where it's hard to permit a project, or where there might be concerns with the politics of projects. So we're lucky to be in Canada's Yukon. And now we're well capitalized and we financed in August, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But that gives us an advantage. We can plan ahead and start to de-risk this project in our operations next year. And we're pretty much year round. We will have drill results year round. So our team, we're continuing to get some great people. This morning in our news release, we announced adding communications, and both Jasmine Sangria joined us, and she's both going to help us on the community communications, which are really important as we move this project forward. And all the baseline work and community work that needs to be done. And then also on the branding and communications with investors. So look to see her as we hopefully get back to conferences in the new year, starting with maybe a roundup. We are attending the MIF conference, the Metal Investor Forum, this week in Vancouver, which is in person. We were going to be attending geoscience in the Yukon, but due to COVID, that's now been canceled. So look for us and feel free to reach out to me if you're an investor and have questions that I don't answer in this webinar or you can't find the information on. So now, as of today, we have about $15 million in the bank with 3 drills turning, well set up for next year. That financing really was really important for us, bringing in Franklin Gold and Precious Metals, a good long-term shareholder, along with Victoria Gold to 12%, and continued good support from our other large shareholders, AuEq Development and Alexco. We are continuing to get analyst coverage. We appreciate Brock Saylor, and you can read about us in his work. And also Gwen Preston at the Metal Investor Forum has been starting to write about us in her newsletter. As I said, we're next to 2 producing mines. Many shareholders might ask about what's going on in the Yukon with COVID, and last night the Yukon actually decided to again put in measures to limit numbers to inside gatherings less than 25 and 6 people in households, because COVID is starting to have some community spread. Hasn't affected us to date. We've taken lots of precautions to put in our accommodation, so we have space for people, testing, making sure that we are looking after people. Majority of our staff is double vaccinated. So it really takes a lot of planning to be able to continue to operate. We haven't yet had to shut down at all through COVID. So we're hoping that continues, but we also have plans just in case we need to or have COVID cases on site, so we know what we're going to be doing. So since we put out this resource in June of last year, we've since drilled 35,000 meters of drilling, with another roughly 5,000 to 10,000 planned for this year. We planned 30,000 meters this year, and we'll continue drilling to around December 15th and get as much drilling in as we can. We're very similar to Victoria Gold, and I've talked about that a lot. Their life of mine grade of 0.63 and their recoveries of 74%. That is our target, to get to a grade and a scale similar to what Victoria Gold has. And fabulous infrastructure. We know that the Yukon government is going to be spending money on these roads around us. They committed $63 million in February of this year. That's supposed to start to roll out next year. That brand new power line was just energized in January, and even the cell phone service is getting better in the area, and fiber being brought into Mayo. So just the big picture, which I think is really important. And as people read in the press release this morning, we are awaiting assays from Aurex Hill and all the other holes that we've drilled around power line. We know that we're expanding mineralized footprint while we don't have assays back, because the labs are quite backed up in the Yukon. We were getting really good turnarounds until about June. We had about 20 days average. And then once all the other exploration companies started up in the Yukon, all of the labs were swamped. There are none of them that I know that are taking even rush jobs. So yes, we have to be patient. And for us, we know our mineralization model is predicting where we drill. We look at every drill hole as it comes in. At power line, it's a sheeted vein system, and you can see what we think is mineralization. You don't have the assay results, but we can guide what we're doing by our geologists doing the work that they do and understanding where we put the next drill hole. So you can see where we've drilled this year. The blue dots represent everything that we've drilled and put out results for this year. The pink dots are ones that we've drilled, and they're either cut or being cut or in the assay lab, and green are to be drilled still this year. So we have 3 drills right now. We have one focused on the western expansion of power line, one focused on the eastern expansion of power line, and then you can see we're drilling an infill pattern to really understand the variography of the deposit. So we've got a 3rd drill there. So, now we've taken the original deposit was just 250 meters by 250 meters, these black holes, 14 holes in the middle of this diagram. And the orange is the outline of the pit from the pit constrained resource. The light blue is now where we know the mineralized footprint extends to. And 2 kilometers by 1.8 kilometers is a very significant expansion. And, stepping out 100 meters spacing on this grid, and I'll talk about that a bit in the next couple of slides, we're really adding a lot of ounces by stepping out on those wide spacing. So, we're well into our program for this year. We've got a great plan for next year, which we will get results back to be able to really refine our targeting. We're going to continue to drill at Ormac proper, this roughly 4 by 5 kilometers that you see here. We're also going to do some regional exploration. We just got our permit, which expands the work that we can do on Ormac proper and the expanded area that we staked last year, as well as that Nitra property, which is about 1 kilometer to the west. We will be doing some work there. We think the mineralogy looks very, very similar to what we're seeing in power line. And you can see us also continue to de-risk this in the other really important areas for any project, community relations, making sure we're communicating what we're doing, specifically working directly with the Nutchamike First Nation, the baseline environmental work, that we already started. We started it last year, we continued it this year, and we'll do extensive work over the winter. And then, you know, the other work we've done this year, specifically with COVID, is really doing a bit of a risk assessment. What are the greatest risks to our project? Are there going to be supply chain issues? What can we order ahead and plan so that, you know, we really can set ourselves up for 2022, in addition to hiring great field staff. And we've got a majority of Yukoners working on our project here, which, you know, is great from a not having to travel outside of our jurisdiction perspective during COVID. So great year planned for next year, and focusing right now on power line. And I guess, you know, what I ask people to kind of think about is to look at some of the intersects that we put out and just consider that these are 100-meter spacing step out. So if you were to say have, you know, a 0.5 grade over 50 meters, and you were just to consider that with a, you know, a cylinder of 50 meters, you can do a rough calculation of how many ounces each one of those holes can potentially add. So when you get these big long intersects, like 195 meters of 0.5, it might be 0.5, but that's adding a lot of ounces. And then, you know, when you get higher grades, like 81 meters of 1.03, that adds significantly more ounces. We know that we're seeing really strong grades or strong mineralization to the east and the west up here. That's partly why we're focusing on those two areas with our current drilling. So, you know, we'll have drilled over 120 holes, so that'll give us over 90 holes of assay results going into 2022. Even if they are delayed, really exciting news for our shareholders. And then we'll have that 2,000 meters of drilling, infill drilling, to really understand the variography and what it's going to take to convert this. And we are focusing right now on inferred resource. We're not rushing to infill because, you know, we don't know that we've discovered the best on the property. Remember, power line here is completely blind. There's no soil anomaly here associated with it. So really, we are following up on understanding the mineralization based on drill holes, because that's what we have to guide our work here. When we get back up to Aurex Hill, we do have those strong those strong soil anomalies, as well as those RAB drill results that we had, historic RAB drill results, which we can use to guide our work. You know, we know there were some really interesting results from various of these RAB drill grids, which we'll be able to follow up next year, including the pattern of holes, 18 holes that we put in the summer this year. We're waiting for those results. And, you know, we want to put out those results complete, and part holes and, you know, skipping holes, which is what the lab's been giving back. You know, we really don't want to have people misinterpret because you don't have all your results back. So, and it's also good for us, gives us time to really focus on executing an efficient program out here. So lots of area for exploration for next year and follow up on it. Airstrip as well is open. You know, we saw it was more 0.5-ish, and that's partly why we were focusing on airstrip or power line, where we were seeing those stronger grades. And again, just a little bit more of those RAB drill holes, lots of targets for us to follow up on in 2022. Metallurgy, we're following up on right now. We have some column tests going from dedicated holes that we drilled at airstrip. We will do additional bottle rolls on composites from Powerline and Aurex Hill, and then we'll continue a metallurgical program throughout next year, really starting to understand the metallurgy. We're using Forte Analytical, which is the same company that's doing all of Victoria Gold's grade reconciliation and metallurgical work. So count on us to start to do that. And also looking at how this might be laid out to be a standalone mining project. Where might the infrastructure go? We need to start to think about that for the baseline environmental work, which we continue to do next year, as well as in advance of the PEA. And then eventually we'll want to drill and find areas for infrastructure where there is no mineralization. So that'll be something that we start to really think about, and you'll see this conceptual mine plan change as we have new ideas and we continue to test the bounds of mineralization. You know, as we expand where the pits might be, then we'll have to move the other infrastructure. So the other thing that's super important that we're going to be doing differently and starting to spend more time on is our ESG. More and more investors, including some that came in our last financing, want to know what you're doing and want you to be discussing what we're doing. And we're doing a lot in the field and on the ground. And I think that it's time that we also make sure that we communicate what we're doing. So, you know, what we're doing with our access management plans, working with the First Nation, what we do reusing, recycling, you know, hydropower potential of our project, how we might fit in the current debate about climate change. That's all stuff that we're going to start to make sure that we communicate so people understand the value of the projects. On the social side, that's where we really excel. We spend a lot of time engaging with the community. We've been working with our Every Student Every Day, which we partner with Victoria Gold on that charity, about to give out records amounts of money for next year's school year, focusing on the impacts of COVID, particularly in communities across the Yukon, working with First Nations. I think it's a really important issue, and it's one that I'm very passionate about is our kids. And I've been working on this charity for over 9 years, and COVID really has just renewed my passion for how much we need to really get engaged to help our next generation. So on the social side as well, training, safety, all really important. We're making sure that we're ramping that up along with our market cap and the scale of our program. And of course, on the governance side, making sure we're communicating what we do as a company, what our ethics are, what we're doing, what are our value chains that we're doing in our supply chains, are we accountable? So, and then of course, the workforce issues, making sure that we're dealing with those, have appropriate policies in place, and then specifically COVID, how we're going to continue to manage that. You can see we've got a great team. Pretty small team, lots of people from the local community, including from the Metallurgy First Nation, which we're very proud of. And you'll see us do a little bit of work out on Hyland. It was a project we had when I became the CEO back in 2016. It's also an on-surface oxide, potentially heap leach mineable project with a road in the Yukon, remarkably the same belt of rocks as our AuReMac project. We'll do a bit of work out there next year. But again, next year's primary focus will remain our AuReMac, because we believe that we have the potential to ramp that up. And we think that getting to a threshold of around 3 million ounces is really what will be pivotal for that project. So I think you'll see us continue to re-rate. The market's been underappreciating metal stocks still, and precious metals still at this time. As we go into the new year, I think people start to appreciate that we've increased ounces, and we continue to increase ounces with every drill hole. But we're also increasing the quality of our ounces. We're de-risking this project with all the other work that we're doing, the ESG, the metallurgy, being in a tier 1 jurisdiction, and the great infrastructure, which is continuing to get better around us. And I think we'll continue to re-rate, not only, but also relative to our peers. So pretty great time. And thank all the shareholders who've entrusted us with investing with us. We are really using shareholders' dollars well. We know that we have a very efficient program that we're executing. We're now funded into 2023. We'll have continuous drill results. While they might be slow getting back, they will show that we do understand what's going on with the mineralogy, and we're building ounces here. So that's the plan. Look for that resource update in Q2 2022. And then we'll start our PEA in 2022 as well. It's a great time, I think, to be looking at precious metal stocks. So, that's the general update. And, Deborah, I expect you have some questions for me.
Yeah, for sure. We have a couple audience questions. One of them you just reiterated, which is when your resource statements due out. And we had a question about how much of it will be in the inferred category.
We're primarily focusing on inferred. There is that area where we are drilling to the north part of power line there, where we're getting some infill. So we're expecting a small proportion in the measured and indicated categories, but really inferred is the primary goal.
Okay. And then I had another question about how can you start a PEA when you expect 1.8 by 2 kilometers to expand to 5 kilometers? I guess it's just asking what would be sort of your timelines for a PEA if you're focused on expanding the footprint right now?
Yeah, and getting those preliminary economics, and it is a PEA, right? So we know that we're going to continue to expand the project next year with drilling, adding ounces. We focused on airstrip originally because it was known, and then we made the blind discovery of power line. So yes, there could be lots more on the property. But I think, having a PEA will start to communicate what the economics of potentially mining would be and what areas we need to focus on as we move to continue to develop this project. Victoria Gold, when they did their feasibility study and permitted, had 2 million ounces in reserve. So kind of a global resource of around 3 million ounces. So I think that's a critical threshold to start to look at the economics. And, PEAs are really only a starting point of doing it. And understanding a project. And, we have the benefit of having the actual costs from Victoria Gold's build. All the engineering work that they did will help us in understanding the challenges that they've faced as well. And you're better to start some of that work earlier and, get a better project as you continue to envision the project.
Okay. And just talking about M&A, I guess one of the audience questions would it make sense to sell Hyland and concentrate on Aurex? Are you open to M&A? How do you look at that in terms of shareholder value?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we want to get back to Hyland is we think it has a lot more value. We don't think we're really getting any value for it in the market right now. If people were to want to look at Hyland, that would be something we'd consider. We really think Aurex is the most value for our shareholders right now.
And then I have a question for you, Tara. You mentioned at the beginning of your drill program, you were seeing turnaround results from the lab in a timely fashion, and that's changed quite a bit since June. How has that impacted the planning of the drill program?
It changed. We mostly focused on power line, which, is a good thing. We're seeing some great grades there. We might have gone back to Aurex Hill if we'd have got those results back sooner. But that's also a more challenging place to drill, particularly through the winter and the fall. We need to do a little bit more road work to be able to access that all season. It's not impossible. So, we absolutely did pivot to make sure that we were, getting value from our drilling. And yeah, you have to do that, right? That makes the most sense for shareholders.
Mm-hmm. Can I get you to flip back to the slide where you had the holes that you've drilled and that you're going to drill still?
Sure.
I think that's an interesting slide. And you talked a lot about your step out holes and your spacing. There's a few outlier holes down like south of Aurex Hill and to the north of Aurex Hill. Can you explain what you were looking for there?
So here at Airstrip, we thought we can see that mineralization in the geochemistry. So this was actually a hole that we drilled last year, and it did intersect mineralization, and it's a good 1.2 kilometers from the end of Airstrip. So yes, there's potential all in here to expand Airstrip mineralization. Down here, there was a really strong soil anomaly down there. It was road accessible. We thought we really wanted to check out what that target might be down here. We've got all these RAB drill holes, which show that there's mineralization here. This one was easy to access because there's a road down here. So that's why, it's maybe a little bit more stepped out. And we don't have results from it yet. But, we know from this soil anomaly that there's a huge potentially mineralized area over here. So lots of additional targets, which, we're just gonna have to get out and put some drill holes and see what's out there in that large area. And I guess, I also have our 3D model. If you look on our website, just the overview of what it looks like in our property, our Aurex camp here, Aurex Hill, this is all power line. It's a pretty nice to be able to, you can zoom in on all of these on the website. And then if you want to go and look at just how large the area is between power line, and we haven't updated all the holes on this yet, but you can see that's the original power line resource and pit, and then you can turn it up, and these are all the holes to about August when we finish this Aurex Hill drilling. But you can just see what a huge area that is, and you can see some of the mineralization from the results that we've released to date. But we're going to continue to update this 3D model. It sometimes doesn't work in webinars, so I don't use this whole presentation just because sometimes it slows down the bandwidth. But it's just such a large area and has such rolling topography.
Okay, and then I have a couple more audience questions, and I know this one's going to be really hard to answer, but I guess they're asking when you think you're going to be getting drill results. I know the lab turnaround times have been slow from both from Aurex Hill particularly. What do you think? Do you think you'll have them by year end?
I'm hoping we have all of them complete. The problem is when the lab got backed up, they didn't necessarily do all this. So, we've got part holes of one, and then we've got part holes of another one, but we don't have a complete hole. So, we're working with them to help reorganize. We didn't realize how badly they'd got behind for a little while, and then talking to them, okay, these are our priorities because these are complete holes, and this is the sequence of holes, because it looks also awkward when you have a gap in your drill results. It kind of looks like you're not releasing those holes when really you maybe haven't received them from the lab. So for them to get complete for Aurex Hill and to have a sequence of holes, I think is important before we put them out. So we've been putting a lot of pressure on the lab and talking to them about timelines. They've been increasing their staffing and their resourcing. So I think that we will see some better times. It just, I think they were a little bit overwhelmed with all the volume they saw through the summer. I know they were overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And one would assume if you're still drilling after a lot of other drillers have stopped, hopefully they can get through their backlog and the timing tightens up a little bit for you.
Well, we know we're funded for next year. We've got a very large program. We might be the largest program next year. Maybe not. Maybe Victoria Gold's larger than us, but we should be one of the top. So that should mean the labs want our business preferentially. And I like to think that we're a project that's going to be moving forward quickly. And so people will want to compete for our business. So that should give us a little bit of an advantage.
Okay. And then I had a question about the drillers. Do you have to pay the cost of leaving the drill equipment on site through the winter? Or is that just the deal for the drillers as they have no other work anyway through the winter? But I guess your break is only going to be 2 months, right?
We don't pay a standby fee. We've got a very good relationship with our drillers. We get great rates, and many things we don't pay standby fees on, simply because we are one of their biggest clients. And generally you get better rates when you're their big client. And it's not like we're a remote project where you fly, you drill in and then it sits there and then they've got the risk of it not coming out. We're right on a highway. If they needed to go get their drill, they could go get their drill. It's right there, year-round road.
Mm-hmm. That I think has been such a game changer for your project, having that year-round access and that great infrastructure.
And we've really invested in it this year. A lot of the work that we've done this fall is focusing on getting our camp set up so that it's more comfortable for our employees and our drillers. We've got more redundancy to deal with cold weather, backup generators, etc., so that we have less risk. And you need to compete for employees. We're really thankful right now. We got the A-team drillers because there's nobody drilling, and many of them want to have regular rotations. Most of our drillers are based out of Whitehorse as our field crew right now. So yeah, hopefully we'll become the preferred exploration project for the top exploration people. Yeah,
well, it's unbelievable how long your season is. I remember when I was first looking at Yukon exploration, like the drilling season would be what, 6 to 8 months tops, and you're extending it to, I think you're almost drilling for what, 9 months?
Oh, almost. If we only take from December to February 15th, that's only 2 months off. So yeah, that's 10 months. Lots of the fly-in projects, they could operate. The risk is the weather with flying in, and that's really the advantage of having the road is the safety part of it, which you never want to take risks on that part. So that really lets us have that longer season. So we're such a short drive to the community of Mayo.
Mm-hmm. And you've got such a huge backlog of results from the drill program this year. It's such a sizable program compared to previous ones for Banyan. So I think for anyone that's looking at the story right now, like the news flow over the coming months is going to be phenomenal.
Absolutely. And, we've really pivoted to make sure that we were drilling to where we knew we could get mineralization so that backlog wouldn't affect our results. And that's why we didn't rush back to Aurex Hill. Focus on Powerline where we continue to grow it, the resource.
In your release this morning, you mentioned that you'd applied for an OTC QB listing. Can you maybe give us an update on that and timelines where you are in the process?
Yeah, that they're a little vague because I think they're backlogged as well. So originally we were listed on the pink sheets by some, not by Banyan originally. But then with the new regulatory changes in the US, they announced that many brokerages were going to advise people to sell companies that didn't apply for the new listing. So we've put in an application many months ago. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline, because I think that's also something that's had a huge backlog, and many companies have experienced that. And it's because it's new, it's really hard to know what the timeline would be. We're hoping it's soon, because we did apply quite a while ago.
That's one way to get business, right? It is a funny thing though. Yeah, exactly. It is a funny thing though. Like, I don't know if people are that familiar, but there's certain exchanges where the company doesn't have to agree to be listed or apply to be listed. Any individual can list them, which is so strange, which is what happens on the peak sheets, which I think shouldn't be allowed anyway, but it's good, I think, to get a higher quality listing down there and make it easier for US investors to buy stock.
Absolutely.
Anything else that we haven't covered today, Tara, that you wanted to talk about?
Not that I can think of. I appreciate all the shareholders and investors joining in to ask questions, because it helps you think about the other things that shareholders are looking for. And we will hopefully come back in January with some results and really some more details on what our drill plans will be for next year, and what the focus will be.
Well, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I'd love to ask you what you're planning, but I know you've got a ton of results to go through and figure out what your next steps would be. But yeah, it's certainly a formative year for drilling for Banyan. So looking forward to seeing those results and seeing what you decide to do with the project in 2022, which you're fully funded, I think, for the next 2 years. So exciting times. And I was just looking, I think the share price is around the same level as when we first started speaking to each other, was it a year ago? Yeah, maybe just over that, a year and a half, summer of 2020.
Yeah, no, we started talking just right after the resource. So I think we were down around 8 to 10 cents when we first started.
That's right. And then the run up in
the updated resource, and we've seen a pretty significant share price increase since the resource and with the drilling.
That's right. Yeah, you put out that resource and then you re-rated and then raised capital the summer of 2020, I think.
And I think on a value per ounce, I think you'll continue to see us re-rate. If $50 per ounce is our current in the ground ounce cost, then with the drilling that we've done, we should see that resource significantly increase. And then the quality of ounces, I think with projects which are more likely to be able to advance towards a mine and have that metallurgy, should increase to 50, 70 or more dollars per ounce as well.
But still, I think where you're at right now versus the de-risking that you've done over the past year and a half, it's I don't think it quite makes sense in my head. You should definitely be trading higher, in my opinion. So hopefully as we start to see some of those drill results come out, you start getting credit for them. And look forward to the resource update. And I wish you a lot of success in the rest of your program, and looking forward to meeting you in person, Tara.
Yeah, good to look forward to it. I think that's going to be the end of this Metal Investor Forum. We'll get a chance to catch up. So
yeah, it would be great. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to reach out to myself and I'll get those answered for you. And thanks so much for your time, Tara. Thanks to everyone for participating. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.